Hello, I'm Jonathan Moyes, Head of Investment Research at Wealth Club, and today I'm with Will Horlick of Molten Ventures to talk about the Molten Ventures VCT. Hello Will, welcome back to the studio. So we're here to talk about Molten Ventures VCT. What is it, what differentiates it from the other VCTs, and why should investors consider backing it this tax year?
Okay, nice to be back here, Jonathan. Thank you for having us. The Molten Ventures VCT is classified as a generalist VCT, but it's actually a technology specialist. So we invest solely in technology, and you can find investments in our portfolio ranging from space tech, climate tech, health tech, precision medicine, enterprise software. Our North Star is that we want to pay a 5% dividend at least per annum and get our shareholders some capital gains.
And taking a step back, Molten Ventures manage the VCT. For those who aren't familiar, who is Molten Ventures?
Molten Ventures PLC is an institutional investor which is listed on the stock exchange. It's the owner of the VCT manager, and it's the owner of the EIS funds within Molten, which are some of the highest rated funds by commentators. We invest as the VCT alongside the Molten PLC balance sheet and those EIS funds into qualifying businesses. Today, the NAV is about 130 million, and you'll find 40 technology companies in the portfolio.
And looking in more detail at the types of companies that you look to back, you mentioned technology. Could you give us some more detail on the types of companies you'd like to see?
We split technology into four sectors. Enterprise tech, which is pretty obvious. It trades on pretty set multiples according to the market. We invest in businesses that tend to have at least 1 million of revenue, up to about 10 million of revenue. And those are pretty bread and butter companies for us. We also invest in what we call deep tech, which could be hardware and IP. Those businesses have the attributes. They have some very good IP behind them. They may often be out of universities where the technology was first born, and they may be pre-commercialization, but such is the problem that they're trying to address, that they would be very disruptive, and hence they may attract very high strategic values. So the trick for those is to try to get them into the commercial groove. We also invest in health tech, and we just sold a business in July from the health tech portfolio, and we do a little bit of investing into the consumer market as well, companies in the retail space, and such as Freetrade and Crowdcube.
I suspect we'll come on to that healthcare exit later. So turning to deal flow and finding these investments, how are you sourcing these investments? And is there a particular competitive advantage for Molten in finding some of these early stage deals?
Yeah, we have obviously our long tentacles into the angel networks and prior entrepreneurs, because the people in Molten have been around for a long time doing this. We also have, through the Molten PLC, investments in about 80 fund of funds, and they're solely investing in that very early seed stage technology. Within that portfolio, there are over 2,000 companies. We have a team within Molten that look at these businesses, and we've invested in some of them that have come out of there. Molten PLC also made an acquisition of a business called Forward Partners, who were seed investors quoted on the exchange. And they're now part of the team, and we have some deals out of their portfolio as well. So we are slightly different in where we find our deals.
So Will, if we look at some of the recent examples of companies you've backed in the portfolio, do you have any particular highlights there?
Yes, I'll talk about the last three. We have a business called Binalyze. It's in the cybersecurity space. If you were a CEO, the last thing you probably want is a call from your CIO or from your data people saying there's been a breach of data. Absolute panic. What Binalyze do is they monitor forensically the incidents and the response that should be gleaned and given from that. So it's a very interesting space, slightly different to stopping people getting in the enterprise. It's how you react afterwards. It's a growing business. It's got about 2.5 million of ARR. We also invested in a business called FinTech, which, as the name sounds, is a fintech business. They produce applications for banks and insurance companies which can readily slot into their existing architecture without those banks having to re-engineer their own systems or build them themselves. Again, that's over 10 million in revenue. And the last business we invested in was a business called Exmos, which is out of Bristol. And they're a fabulous semiconductor manufacturer, or not a manufacturer, a designer in the IoT and audio space. And again, they have revenues over 10 million.
And so looking at some of the more established holdings in the portfolio, any key highlights there?
Yes, actually our two most valuable Molten assets are both fintech. So one is Thought Machine, which is our most valuable asset, which is in the core banking software space. They have very good clients, many of which have invested in the business. We backed that when their revenues were about 8 million. Then they're now close to 50 million, listed at Companies House. And Form 3, which is a payments platform, again, we backed that when I think it had about 3 million of revenue. It's now up at about 18 million of revenue. So we're seeing some growth out of those assets. It's really nice to see.
And so when you back some of these businesses, to what extent do you aim to get involved with the business and help add some value? Or is it a case of you find a great management team and away they go, just leave them to it?
Great management is always fantastic. So if you have a previous founder who's coming around again, that is always a delight for us, because it's the founders who are going to make the money for our shareholders. But we do, within Molten, we do have a team of people who look at cross-fertilizing the CIOs and the C-suite executives. We help them with them scaling, entering new geographies. So that experience is there within house, and we have a person who's dedicated towards that and speaking and liaising with all our portfolio companies. And that's helping them get on the runway and to grow their business. But on the way out, when it comes to exit, we have a partnership with an M&A specialist in the technology space who has a relationship with the majority of our companies. And getting to exit can take 2 years, a 2-year process if you want to do it properly and attract the right values. And they are involved with a lot of our businesses.
So, Will, you mentioned exits there. We've seen the past couple of years, we've had a tougher time for exits across venture capital within the UK. Is that a theme that's affecting you? You mentioned one exit at the beginning of our interview. Have you had many exits recently? You're right, it has been slightly limited, but our latest exit, it was one of our most valuable companies, a business called Endomagnetics, health tech business in the cancer trace and detection space. They sell razors and razor blades, so they sell medical devices, the machines and the dyes that go with tracking the cancers. It's been a great run. We invested in 2018. We invested again in 2020. The devices can be found in thousands of hospitals around the globe in 45 countries. We exited, received proceeds of 8 million, which was a multiple of 4 times cost. And our shareholders, I think, can feel pleased that not only have they got the financial returns, but they probably saved many hundreds, if not thousands of lives by backing that company. And Jonathan, you asked the question about the wider exit market within Molten, but not within the VCT. We have had 3 other exits, 2 out of the EIS fund, as well as Endomagnetics, which were at very high levels over between 130 million and 500 million valuation exits, which are pretty good. And so I think we're beginning to see the green shoots of recovery in terms of buyers coming back into the market. Oh, very good. And of course, for every big success, there are still risks and failures. So just touching on risks, How risky is your VCT, would you say? And is there anything you can do to help manage those risks?
Our VCT reflects the technology market, really. So if we look at the businesses, the more established ones are benchmarked against sort of NASDAQ and a basket of tech companies. So where we see volatility in those markets, which has been happening, obviously that reflects through to our businesses. The way that we can mitigate that is to back businesses that are growing very fast. So while there is a crossover between their actual revenue numbers and their growth rates and the markets, we can be patient as investors and wait to get through the cycle to a good time when we can exit those businesses.
And where are we now in the cycle? And then where are you currently seeing the most attractive opportunities?
Well, it's interesting.
Bit of crystal ball gazing, I guess. But
yeah, it's interesting. People have been trying to guess the bottom of the market. To some extent, it's great if you can invest there, but as long as you carry on investing into good companies throughout the cycle, you're going to end up with a reasonable portfolio. So the sectors that we're looking at, I mentioned cybersecurity earlier. AI obviously has received lots of hype. We do have businesses, quite a number of them, that are leveraging AI. Health tech, precision medicine, enterprise software, climate tech is an area where we're making more and more investments as well. So a whole gamut of sectors within technology.
So to sum up, Will, for those who want to back a VCT this year, why should they consider the Molten Ventures VCT?
Well, if you like technology and the attributes and the potential high values that can be returned from growing good investments, then we're probably one of the only VCTs that has that sort of 100% risk exposure to technology. Also, if you were to look at what we did as managers and partners, we have over £1 million of our own money invested in this VCT. So we believe in the sector, we believe in what we're doing, and we believe in UK tech.
Very good. Will Horlick of Molten Ventures, thank you very much. If you are watching on YouTube, please press like and subscribe to the channel for more.